I know you're all here to hear and learn from and become inspired by Bryan Baeumler of HGTV.
We're doing a little more work down here, getting to know things, and the products are important. That's one of the best things I like about going to the show. Keep my thumb on what's new, what's exciting.
How's everybody doing? My first time at the Fort Lauderdale Home Show. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here. It's nice to drive to work for once instead of have to fly and take 2 or 3 flights to work. But it's great to be here. I want to start. I like to have a little fun. I like to give you a peek into the history, and been doing this for 20 years. We've made over 17 shows, 700 something episodes. You guys have been lucky. They've only aired down here for the past few years. You haven't had to endure the entire thing. But when I started, I was a young guy. I had a blue-collar dad, had a sheet metal company at the airport. I basically grew up around tools. So I was the kid always taking stuff apart. Dad would come home and the hell happened to the lawnmower, what happened to the tractor, the whole thing. And he grew up in Germany. I'm going way back now. He escaped East Germany at 14 to West Germany, and then flew to California and ended up in Canada. And he came across the ocean like most of our parents did, in his lederhosen with a quarter in his pocket, and it was a storm, and it was uphill the whole way, and he had it really rough. And he managed to put my brother and I into private school. So we're sitting in school with our ties on, our little horses on our shirt. And the joke in class at the time was, if you screw up in here, you're going to end up out there working with the maintenance guys. And I always thought, shit, I want to go work with the maintenance guys, right? Those are my people. I want to go drive the tractor and fix the fence and build things and do all that kind of stuff. So when it came to grade 11, my guidance counselor sat me down. He said, "Bryan, what are you going to do with your life?" I said, "Oh shit, I want to work with the maintenance guys, but I want to have a nice car one day. So my dad's lawyer has a nice car. I should be a lawyer," right? It made sense. So I went to university. I did a degree in political science, which taught me to lie, cheat, and steal. I did a degree in business, which taught me to account for all the lying, cheating, and stealing. And then I moved to Vancouver and took a year off. Yeah, Vancouver, West Coast. And I took a year off. I was going to go to UBC Law School and become a lawyer and have a nice car. And when I was out there, I bumped into a friend of mine, Pat, who was building beautiful custom homes on the ocean. And Pat and I, when we were 14 at our lake house up in Northern Ontario, we started a little handyman company. We had a tinny with a 15 horsepower on it, and we would go around clean up garbage for contractors and painting fences and fixing things. And eventually a framing crew saw us and they said, "Hey, can you come and pick up all the garbage?" We said, "Sure." A couple of weeks later, they said, "Can you run into town and pick up all the lumber for this cottage we're building?" I said, "Sure." And then it was, "Can you carry it up here? Can you measure it? Can you cut that for me?" And all of a sudden it was, "Get on the roof and cut me a Valley Jack rafter, sheet the roof, and finish framing the house." So 5,000 hours later, Pat and I had our apprenticeship hours done for framing, for being carpenters. Anyway, fast forward, I get to Vancouver. I'm waiting to go to law school, and I see Pat having the time of his life, driving machines, framing houses. It's like, shit, I can't go to law school. So I moved back to Toronto, and I went to trade school to a place called George Brown. I did reno tech and building code updates, and that was it. I went out and did exactly what my father in the lederhosen with the quarter told me not to do. And I borrowed as much money as I could, and I bought a Dodge Ram with the Hemi, the 22-inch wheels. I had the exhaust kit on it. I had a stereo in it, leather seats. It was beautiful. Bought a big trailer. I filled it with tools. I put my company name down the side, Baeumler Quality Construction. Now, my dad growing up, he was in the sheet metal business at the airport. It was Baeumler Quality Sheet Metal. And think, Dad's a frugal guy. He comes over with Mom, and he's standing in my driveway. He's pointing at this truck, shaking his finger, and I thought, oh, God, here we go. Because he was always, don't spend it till you make it. Start small. And I started in on him right away. I'm like, "Dad, listen, it's all about marketing these days. It's social media. I need to look good. I need to look successful. It needs to be shiny. The Hemi is just to pull the trailer. The music is, just to calm me down on the way to work." I start giving him all these excuses. And he just looks at me, he says, "No, that's my name." And I quote, "Don't fuck it up." And my mom piped in, she said, "And keep your nose clean." And what she meant by that was show up when you say you'll be there, do what you say you'll do, clean up at the end of the day, pay your taxes, and go to sleep. That way you never have to look over your shoulder, you don't have to hide your face when you drive by a client, you don't have to worry about anything. I thought, okay. And I realized getting older, she meant it literally as well. Nose hairs start to grow more than the head hairs these days. But I followed her advice and my dad's advice the first few years of construction. It was just myself in the back of the truck and the trailer, and then I hired one guy and two guys, and all of a sudden I had 6 guys, and it was 7 years later, and I'm working 100 hours a week. And I was sitting at home one day with my feet up on the couch, and I see this old guy, he's in overalls, he's really grumpy, he's talking shit about all the contractors, nobody can do it right. And I'm watching this show, and then all of a sudden he brings in his plumber, Pete. And he points at Pete. He said, look, if you need plumbing done in your home, Pete's the only guy that can do the plumbing. He's the only licensed guy. He's the only guy who's not going to run away with your wife, kill your dog, steal your money, burn your house down. Pete's the only licensed, qualified, well-referenced, skilled plumber on the planet. And underneath Pete is Pete's Plumbing and his phone number and his website. And I immediately thought, holy shit, Pete. You went in and did 5 minutes of free work for this guy on television, and you just got $1 million worth of advertising. Now, this is when the poli-sci and the business kicked in, and I thought, okay, I really want to grow the company. I want this company to grow. We were doing well, but I wanted it to be bigger. I wanted to be one of the biggest developers, that there was. So I went onto the HGTV.ca website. .ca is a thing. And I saw the casting call link, and I saw this casting call for a show, and it said, have you ruined your home? Do you need our expert to come in and show you what you've done wrong and help you fix it? Send us an email. So I sent an email in, said, my name is Bryan, I've got 6 employees. I still have this email printed out in my office. So I've got 6 employees, 5 of them have all their teeth, 4 of them are sober, 3 of them have no criminal records whatsoever. 2 of them, you can show their faces on camera. I said, but every single one of us, we work our butts off and we're good at what we do. And I will come down for 3 months in exchange for the advertising in the show. I didn't want to be on the show. I didn't need to be on. I just wanted my logo, my company on the show. I wanted to grow the business. So Sarah said, yeah, you're not going to hear back from them. I mean, television, it's unicorns in a giant marble building up in the clouds, right? It's magic. You're never going to hear from them. So a couple of weeks later, I get an email from this guy, Frank. He says, my name's Frank. I own a production company with HGTV. We want to come down and meet you. And I said, look, Sarah, I heard back from someone. And I said, okay, great. We're working on a house down on the lake in Oakville, just west of Toronto. I said, come on down. We're doing a 2nd-story addition, a full reno of the house. And this is a homeowner that looked at me one day and said, I want to renovate the entire house. I want to put a new roof on, backyard pool, kitchen, bathroom, basement, laundry room. I want to do the floors. I want to do the windows, everything. And we gave him a quote. I think it was about $650,000. Now, if you ignore the money down here, that'd be $6.5 million. Or $16.5 million. It depends which block you live in. And he looked at me and he said what a lot of homeowners say, and he said, you got to be crazy. That's way too expensive. I'm going to do this myself. I said, perfect. And he said, can I get the name of your demo guy and your electrician, your plumber, your framer, your concrete guy? I said, not a chance, pal. Good luck. Well, fast forward 6 months, he's on the phone in tears. Said we didn't pass inspections. The guy didn't have a permit when he framed the addition. And I said, well, he said, the site's a mess. My electrician and my plumber and my HVAC guy are pissed because the drywall guy's finished, but they're not. And I said, well, these are minor details that, that builders and contractors are aware of that you may not have been. So he had us come in and price it out and to fix everything and go backwards and start over again and move forward. Now we're over $1 million. So fast forward again, this is the day Frank is showing up to film a little hello. And I'm standing there with a homeowner, and I'm expecting a lineup of 5-ton trucks. I'm expecting lobster tails and Wagyu beef for lunch. I'm expecting the giant lights and the generators. I'm expecting a Hollywood film set to arrive. And a little rusty Honda Civic pulls up, and Frank gets out, and he looks like Bowfinger. If you've ever seen that, Steve Martin in Bowfinger. That's what my partner in the production company looks like. Great guy, but looks like Bowfinger. And he gets out of the car, and he's got this 18-year-old girl, his assistant, who's holding a little light on a pole, and he's got a little tiny camera And he comes up, he says, okay, so tell me what happened here. And I just pointed at the homeowner and I said, well, Bonehead thought he'd build his own house and he screwed it up so badly. He would have paid me $650 to do it. Now he's going to pay me over $1 million to fix it. And he looked at Bonehead and the homeowner just went, yeah. And about 2 minutes later, Frank said, okay, I think I got what I need. Thanks very much. Great to meet you. We're going to go. And I thought, shit, my gut was hanging out. I swore. I said I did something wrong. Whatever it was. Anyway, a week later, I get a call, and I'm sitting in the head unicorn's office in the clouds in the marble building. And she slides a contract about this thick across the table and says, if you want to change your life and have a show on HGTV, just sign here. And I reached over to shake her hand and grab the pen. She said, no, call your lawyer, your agent. I said, I don't have a lawyer and an agent. If you want to bury me in court, you're a multi-billion-dollar company, you want to bury me in court over this contract, you can do that. I don't have a chance. So I was going to do this for free. So we signed the contracts. That year was probably, well, I could barely pay my mortgage because there's not a lot of money on the table when you're just a hired gun to come in, bang the nail in, say something funny, and go home. And I showed up on set the first day, and Frank is there, and I had all my guys there. I had the trailer there and the truck. It was a little dirty now, and we had more trucks. But we're standing in the trailer, and a guy walks in with a really hairy arm up my shirt, hooks a microphone on my chest, which I now have a permanent bald patch from 20 years of filming. Not that I'm very hairy, but there's a patch. Not that you need to know that either, but anyway, I can't show you. Sorry. That's the next show. That's after retirement. So this arm's up my chest, it's hanging a microphone on me. Frank walks in, and here's something really funny. My heart rate went from 60 to 360 because that's the moment I remembered that all through my 20s I had a horrible anxiety disorder. Like agoraphobic panic attack 24/7. That's the moment my body decided to remind me of this anxiety, which was terrible. So I looked at Frank and I said, what do I do? And he said, it's easy. Come around the corner in your truck, pull up in the driveway. The wife's going to show you what he did. Then grab him by the ear, show him what he did wrong, make fun of him, and then teach him how to fix it. And I instantly went, oh, shit, I can do this? No problem. So we started filming that day, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret about television here, and I don't want you to tell anyone because you'll ruin it for everybody. We're starting the first scene, and we had to demo this kitchen. And in the kitchen, we took a wall down, and the water lines went into the concrete, and we had a jackhammer, and I said, okay, Gord, I got to open up this floor here, but we got to be real careful we don't hit the water lines. I'm the professional, so I'm going to do this. And the minute that jackhammer hit the ground about a foot away from the water, because I didn't know they went in the concrete, turned, and were only 1/8 of an inch underneath the concrete. So the minute that jackhammer hit the floor, this spray of water hit the ceiling, and I thought, oh my God, my television debut, and I look like a complete moron. And then I hear Frank yell, turn the water off. Give the jackhammer to the homeowner. The minute he touches the floor, turn the water on, and Bryan, give him shit. And this light bulb went off, and I was like, oh my God. That was the moment all my anxiety went away, and I realized it's going to be okay. Because I don't know, has anyone watched Disaster DIY? A few people. That was one of the first shows I did. So we started filming 20 years ago when Sarah was pregnant with Quentin. He just turned 19. So that was the show. And we did 7 seasons of that show. And it was going in to help people fix things that they'd ruined. And then one day we got into a house towards the end of that show, and the homeowner, he said, I really want to put a man cave in the basement. But they had no insulation in the attic. They had single pane windows, mold in the basement, asbestos in the walls. And I said, God, I wish people would just give me their money and their keys, and I could throw them out of their house and bring them back when I'm done. And that's how Leave It to Bryan was born. And then after a couple of seasons of that, Sarah had been bothering me. She said, look, you're this guy on TV fixing everything for everyone. And we live in a 1950s bungalow with asbestos in the attic and single pane windows and mold in the basement. Aren't you a little embarrassed? And I came home one day, and there's my wife at the end of the driveway with another man. God, I wish it hadn't have been an architect. Because they're pointing at this little bungalow with their arms up in the air and really wide, and I thought, shit, here we go. So I had to go down and talk to the network. At this point, our contract had ended. I could barely pay my mortgage because I'm spending all my time filming and working. And we'd grown the business a little, but it's really hard to manage a business when you're working 100 hours a week, and now we're popping kids out and all kinds of things. So I had to talk to the network and say, look, I'm not going to renew the contract. I got to build my own house, or Sarah's going to leave me, and I own a construction company, and this is not right, what's happening here. She said, well, no, we have to renew the show. The shows are doing really well now. It's a few seasons in. And I said, well, I need to build my house and spend time on my company building it up. She said, well, how long is it going to take? I said, I own a construction company. How long do you think it's going to take me to build a house? It's going to take years. When I have extra lumber, I'll use that. When my electrician knows me a favor, I'll do that. It's the shoemaker and the shoes, right? We're going to be wearing sandals for a decade or two. But that's okay. And she said, well, what if we film it? And at this point we had some great partnerships and advertising partnerships and what have you. And I said, let me think about this, because I'm working 100 hours a week. I'm tired. I can barely pay my mortgage. I see the kids when they're asleep when I leave and asleep when I'm home. And I started thinking how hard my dad was working. Anyway, I went home and I thought about it, and I came back in, wrote my own terms in a contract, and I put it on Anna's desk and I slid it across and said, if you want to have House of Bryan on the network, just sign here. And the look in her eye was not as excited as the first time she had slid the contract over. So things changed a little bit there. So you have to remember when you're watching television, everything's not done in half an hour. Well, it's 22 minutes after commercials and $35,000. That might happen, in some places. In Minnesota, might happen in New Mexico. It certainly doesn't happen here in Fort Lauderdale on the beach. And we air across Canada and the US and 151 other countries. So it's hard to nail a price down that's going to work everywhere. And you have to remember as well, in those early shows, if you watch Disaster DIY or Leave It to Bryan, you'll know that I never make a mistake, right? I mean, if you think about it, you've never seen me on television, apart from House of Bryan was different, Bryan Inc. was a little different, the hotel show was a little, because we let you in behind the curtain. But in those other shows, you've never seen me cut a 2x4 too short. We're always ahead of schedule. We're always under budget. The homeowners are always happy, and we always get paid. Do you know why? Because we have a team of editors hopped up on Red Bull and cigarettes. They're up all night. They're cutting all that stuff out. They are that proverbial jackhammer from season 1. Give it to the homeowner, turn the water on, and yell at them. So remember that. We had an exciting few years. Did anyone watch? I gotta remember the names of the shows now. Renovation Island. Yes. Did anyone not watch Renovation Island? Is anyone sitting there wondering who is this person and why am I here? So you are. We have security. They'll escort you back to your car. So we a few years ago we decided to do something crazy, and we picked up our lives. We had just finished building a new house. And we actually had House of Bryan, another series we did, House of Bryan season 4, down in the Florida Keys, scheduled to go, where some of my friends popped up from. So we were going to build a house down in the Florida Keys and film it, and it was going to be great and fun and everything. The network was all ready to go, and I said, well, we're not doing that because we bought a boat and we've been spending time over in the Bahamas, and we bought a hotel. And the way that came around, boating in the Bahamas it's beautiful. Has anyone been to the Bahamas? You should really. It's like you can spit at it. It's the closest. It's closer than Georgia. So we spent a lot of time on the boat, wandering around in the Bahamas. I was looking at the charts, and there's Andros Island, the biggest. It's bigger than all 700 islands in the Bahamas combined. And I wanted to go and visit because looking at the map, there's no roads. There's no gas stations, there's no hotels, there's no restaurants, there's nothing, according to the map. Now, according to Google Images, there is a road and there are things. So we started doing some research, and we were stuck at Chub Key for 5 days, bad weather, couldn't go anywhere. So I did what every responsible father would do. I chartered a 1964 Piper Aztec with an 18-year-old Bahamian pilot, and we shoved the whole family in there, and we flew down to Andros to look around. And we had seen, doing some of the research, this empty, vacant hotel that was for sale. I think they wanted $3 million for it. And we went and looked around the island, and there is gas stations and there's restaurants. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful place. People are super friendly. It was just a great place. We felt very welcome and at home. And then we said, okay, Dennis, we'd like to take a look at this abandoned hotel. He said, okay. So we drove in. We pulled in the gate. I don't think we were there 5 minutes, and Sarah looked at me and said, we should buy this place. And I looked at her and said, sure. I mean, we joke a lot. She wasn't joking. We got back to the boat that night. We had an offer emailed in for $2 million. They accepted it immediately. I thought, shit, we probably should have gone in a little lower. So a few days later, we own a hotel. And now I'm on the phone with the network saying, we're not filming House of Bryan season 4. We bought a hotel and we're going to pack the kids in the car and we're going to drive to Florida. We're going to get on the boat. We're going to go over to the Bahamas and we're going to renovate a villa for us, one for the kids, one for my parents, one for Sarah's parents. And then, as things often do in renovations, it started to spiral out of control. And it became, now we're just going to renovate an entire hotel and open it, which is fine. I mean, we know how to renovate and build things. There came a point in the renovation where we looked at each other and realized we don't know how to run a hotel. But that was fine. We managed to get some management in and what have you. But the conversation with the network was really interesting, and family and friends. I mean, imagine going home one day and telling your family and friends, I know I just finished building a house, and I know we've lived here our whole lives, and we have businesses here, but we just bought a hotel, and abandoned hotel on an island with 1,600 people, and we're going to move there for a few years with the kids. You know, people said, you're crazy. You can't do this. And I said, well, why can't I do it? And the reasons we got back were interesting. You know, one was, what if they don't want you there? I said, well, we met almost everyone on the island. They're beautiful people. They're very welcoming. We felt very at home. And they want the hotel to reopen. They want jobs, and they want tourism. They want revenue. You know, it's a micro economy. It's been really interesting to watch it flourish. And then there was, well, you can't pull the kids out of school. They'll never catch up. And I thought, well, when I graduated high school, the 2 smartest kids in my class showed up in grade 9. They didn't speak a word of English. And 4 years later, they're the smartest kids in the school. These are guys going to Harvard and wherever they want. Our kids are still eating crayons and learning to eat glue. Like they're going to recover. You know, plus there's a school on the island. They went to local school for a while and what have you. Then it was, what if there's a hurricane? Well, there was 2. What if what if? And I finally looked at it was my dad, and I looked at him and I said, what if I spend the next 20 years getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and 2 hours on the highway to work, and I work all day, and then I drive home 2 hours and have dinner and go to bed, and I do that for the next 20, 25 years, and then I wake up one day and decide to retire, and instantly that's when the chest pains start, right? The day you retire. That's what happens. I said, what if then? You know, and really I said the end result, whether I do something I want to do or I don't do it, the end result is the same, right? None of us are getting out of here alive. You'll get out of here alive, like you'll be fine here. You'll get home, I mean the big picture, right? Big picture. So we decided we'd do it, you know, and it was still, well, what if you lose everything? I said, I'm not dead yet. I can still work. Because I remember the day Quentin was born, I looked at Sarah and I said, if I have to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the rest of my life to make sure that I provide for you and the family and we can do things we want, I'll do that. Not realizing at the time that is what I would end up having to do with 4 kids and horses and all that kind of stuff. But that was really important. We learned a lot of really interesting lessons on the island about people, about culture, about housing. Really interesting thing happened the first day we were there. We pull up in the boat, we park in the marina, and I mean, there's not a lot of tourism there, not a lot of development, so it's pretty beat up. And we've traveled a lot. We're used to different cultures and places and people. But, you know, when you travel and you've got your 4 young children and you're on your boat and you're like, we just moved here, it's a different kind of feeling. You want to protect your kids and you're not sure, you know, how are they going to adapt to the culture and this, that, and the other thing. And the greatest thing is we opened the door on the boat and our kids were like kids. And they ran away, and that was it. They had best friends. They had sleepovers. We have, you know, 2 godchildren on the island now. We have great friends. That was it. They were just like, oh, kids, let's go. And that was it. Amazing lesson for them. You know, it was just like, go. So we learned and ended up teaching the kids or letting the kids learn from themselves that different cultures, different places, at the end of the day, it's parents that want to feed their kids and pay their bills and have a place to live and have parties and have fun. And we're all the same. That was a really great lesson. The other thing we learned, this guy rode up on his bike on the first day and he tapped on the window. And he's a scraggly looking, kind of an alley cat looking guy. His name's Jeffrey. He's 78, but you'd think he's 40. Works like a horse. And he's got a bucket of fish. And he says, hey, do you guys want some fish? And of course, you know, North American color, we're like, no, sir, we're not looking to buy any fish. We got a whole thing of fish. You know, we got a whole cooler of food here. We don't need to buy anything. And he said, oh, I'm not selling fish. I just got a couple extra fish if you wanted one. I was like, oh, shit, that's nice. No, we're good. He came by the next day and tapped on the door, and he had a bucket full of lobster. And he said, hey, do you want some lobster? I was like, yeah, we'll take some lobster. That'd be great. I said, okay, they're $10 a pound. It's like, okay, the pre-sale. He did what we call the radio tag, right? I'm Jeffrey. You know, your boat's safe here. Everything's good. Don't worry. No problem. So that was great. We learned that as well. We also learned something really interesting when you drive down the island or walk down the island and you see people that, you know, don't have what we would consider in North America to be, you know, they're not wealthy. Some guys don't have shoes. They may not have floors in their homes. Not everyone has windows, and, you know, it looks a little rough. But you say to anyone on the island, you know, you see them in the morning, you say, morning, how you doing? And their answer is always, I'm amazing. I'm great. How are you? And a big smile and a hug. And you kind of think at first, like, shit, how can you be? I mean, you don't have a car. You don't have a huge home on the ocean. You don't have a boat. But their answer is always like, I woke up. Much better situation than not waking up. So I am therefore great. And I have an opportunity to be great today. So that was a really interesting lesson that we learned with the family and the kids. It was just a perception thing. Now, when it comes to housing, there's not a single person on our island that the bank will ever knock on their door and say, you didn't pay your mortgage, give us your keys, move out of your home. Because they build as they can afford to build. So you may see a foundation in one spot. You may see a foundation with some walls and then maybe a roof and some windows. There's one home on the island, one of the local guys, Victor, that his home is completely finished. It's beautifully furnished, it's beautifully tiled, it's painted, landscaping. He's got a new car in the driveway. Now, he worked for Carlos later in the 80s when the FBI visited, so he must have got some type of retirement bonus, I'm not sure. But a lovely guy, but it's the only house on the island that's really completely beautiful and finished. But when you think about it, that's the way we should do it in Canada and in the United States. A lot of people here are house proud, but we're house poor. You know, we're moving into, this is where it gets dark here for a second. We're moving into an area, and I realized it when Quentin looked at me a couple of weeks ago, who's our most expensive child, riding a horse and doing all these things, and he looked at me, he said, how the hell am I ever going to be able to afford to buy a home? You know, because anything you buy these days, you have to spend money to fix it, right? There's something wrong, it's leaking, it's not insulated well, it's very inefficient. He said, how am I going to be able to afford to buy a home? And interestingly enough, in Canada, in Toronto, for what we bought a home in Wellington for, you're buying a tear-down semi in downtown full of asbestos and mold and single pane and all that kind of thing. So pricing is getting crazy. And when I started to think more about that, I thought, yeah, we do have a real problem in North America with housing. Because if you can't afford to buy a home now, or you're not planning on buying a home in the near future and willing to make the sacrifice to do it, there's going to come a time where you're not going to be allowed to buy a home. You know, Canada and the US are much more similar than I think a lot of people realize. There's large investment corporations and REITs, there's companies buying single family homes. Our government up north just announced a GST rebate, a tax rebate for developers, and they were all proud that, well, someone stepped up and said they'll build 15,000 rental units, which is terrible because we're going back to the feudal system when it comes to housing, where we're all going to be renting from the king, who is probably an offshore king, so all that money leaves the country, it goes somewhere else, right? So my dad always had this really interesting saying. We had a sheep farm across the road from home growing up, and he always said, it takes 1,000 sheep in the field to keep the lights on in the farmer's house. And it's only starting to make sense as I get older. So if I told you tomorrow, and first I want to ask, how many people own a home? How many people have their mortgage paid off, like they own their home? Okay, less. How many people are renting? Okay, the rest of you, and the people that won't put their hands up. So here's the scary thing, getting into the market, doing all these things. Imagine, I'll ask one more question. How many people have a home that's completely finished? Like, I call bullshit. Like, not a single piece of trim that needs to be finished. There's not a wall that needs to be painted. There's absolutely nothing to fix. Then you're the luckiest woman on the planet. Kudos to you, sir. I still don't believe it, but most people have something in their home that isn't finished, right? And when we walk in and we see a cracked tile or a missing piece of trim or a wall that needs to be painted, you notice it. And then the next time you walk in, it takes you a couple of minutes to notice it. And you walk in the next time and you don't notice it for a few days, and then it's a few weeks, and then it's months, and then it's just there, right? I have little things in my own home that I always want, I should do that. But you start to forget about these things. Now imagine, most people, your home is your retirement savings plan, right? A lot of people plan to pay their mortgage off and sell the home and retire somewhere, like half of the Canadians that are down here, right? Which is a good plan, except if you have to put your home on the market tomorrow, someone's ill, you have a change in your job, you want to move, anything, you don't notice all these little things, but whoever walks in the door to sell your home, the agent, first thing they're going to say is, you got a cracked tile, you're missing a piece of trim there, you got a wall that's not painted. So your most valuable asset is not completely finished and ready to be liquidated for its maximum value. So we tend to look at homes, we want them big, we want them shiny, but build them cheap so we can rent a luxury car or lease a luxury car, put it in the driveway. So if I told you that you had to sell your home in a couple of weeks, here's $100,000, where are you going to spend it to make sure you get the most amount of value out of your largest asset you'll ever own in your life? Where would you spend it? In the kitchen? The bathroom? See, Canada, it's always kitchen, bathroom, basement, but there's not I've yet to see a basement here. Be like an indoor pool, right? Of really smelly water, too. There's a layer. Anyway, so everyone says kitchen, bathroom, so the shiny stuff, the things that we're going to see. So I start to think about this, and I've come up with a model, interestingly enough, it works in Canada. I got to run the math down here, where you can buy a home, and if you make the right decisions, by the time your mortgage is paid off, you got $1 million in the bank. Wouldn't that be nice? Because people look at kitchens and bathrooms and the tile and the shiny things, but rarely do we stand back and look at the maintenance, long-term maintenance costs of a home. Replacing a roof, replacing windows, replacing insulation, the operating costs of your home. Down here, I know you're running air conditioners, except for this winter for some reason. We get the heat on. But you're running air conditioners all the time, right? There's a lot of expenses that go into operating and maintaining homes, especially long-term maintenance. So we look at the European model of housing where they're smaller, they're better designed, open concept, hyper efficient homes. That always makes sense. I look at homes the same way when I was a young man I would look at a woman. All the ladies' eyebrows just went up. All right, so imagine this, right? You look around, you're shopping for a home, and you look around, you're like, I like the looks of that one over there. I like what I see. I'll send an email or a text, maybe set up an appointment. So you're going for coffee, right? Or you're talking to the agent. What's the deal with the home? Then you get a little more serious, and you're going for dinner, maybe a show, maybe a movie, maybe overnight if things go well. You never know. But now you're spending a little more money. There's a little more of a commitment. There's a little more, communication happening. And then at some point when you make that decision that like she's going to be mine or that house is going to be mine, there's a contract you sign and a lot of money changes hands, right? Now all of a sudden, if you've screwed this up, if things go sideways, they get very expensive, very messy, very quickly in both situations, right? But here's the problem. After the wedding, after you buy the home, you go on your honeymoon. And you wake up the next morning. Your first night in the home, you wake up the next morning. And what do you see? What do you see the morning after your wedding? The morning after your honeymoon, your first honeymoon? Just had a great night. All the makeup is on the pillow. All the makeup's on the pillow. When you realize, shit, I got asbestos in the attic, I got single pane windows, I got mold in the basement, right? This thing's gonna cost me $500 a month to keep it cool or heat it in the winter. You have to choose a home or make decisions about your home the same way you make decisions about your partner. You have to make sure that you've chosen something that is healthy, that's going to last a long time, that is efficient to operate, You have to choose something that has real intrinsic value and is not just the cover of the book. So here we tend to think, well, our boat's got a hole in it, so we should buy a pump. Right? And I see that all the time with green technology. It's like, well, we're using a lot of electricity, so we should cover the roof in solar panels, which, if you've built your home properly, is a great idea. But if your home is like the boat and it's got the hole in it and you buy the pump, doesn't it make sense just to fix the hole? Or build a boat without a hole so you don't have to buy the pump? We don't think that way here. And a lot of people say, you know, when we're building and we put a price on a home, I'll give them the option. You want conventional insulation for $50,000? Don't quote me on that to the insulation guys. Or do you want spray foam insulation for $85,000? Do you want a conventional asphalt roof or maybe cement tile, you know, for $100,000? Or do you want to do a standing seam metal roof for $150,000? That'll last the life of the home. It's going to outlast all of us. And a lot of the decisions we make are, well, just give me the standard. Just give me the standard. So now when you replace that roof in 10 or 15 years, it's going to cost you, it's not going to cost you the 50 or the 100 you paid for it. It's going to cost you 150 or 200. When you replace that insulation, well, you're not going to replace that insulation because you're not going in past the drywall. You just want to put new makeup on, put the new kitchen in, the new bathroom in. We're not making decisions when we build or renovate our homes to lower the monthly operating costs or the long-term maintenance costs of our homes. There's ways, and especially in northern climates, there's ways to spend money on your home, sealing air leaks. It's the same thing down here. Or put proper insulation in, or buy materials that you won't ever have to replace so you can just replace the cosmetics. And if you can save even $300, $400, $500 a month over the life of your home, the life of your mortgage, on long-term maintenance costs and operating costs, don't look at that money as savings. Because when you do, it's, hey, you want to go for dinner? We saved $300, $400 this month. Let's go, well, I was going to say let's go to the Bahamas for a weekend, but you should do that to Sur Lamar, if you'd like. You should do that. The mental health is important, a weekend away. But all of these things, if you don't look at it as savings, right? When you buy your home and you make the proper decisions so you're saving $300 or $400 a month, look at that as passive income. And if you take that passive income and you invest it in a tax-free, interest-bearing account, you'll get compound interest over the years. And guess what? That's going to pay for a lot of new kitchens, a lot of new bathrooms. That's going to accrue, and by the time you've paid your mortgage off, you've got hundreds of thousands or $1 million in the bank in savings, if we identify where the real value is. Now, people often say to me, well, no one's going to buy my home if it's got a cheap-looking kitchen, but a metal roof and spray foam insulation. I say, not true. So when you go to look at a home, buy a home, whatever it may be, look at the costs of that home. Look at the materials that were used, when they're going to have to be replaced. When you're selling the home, put that stuff on the table and say, look, you're not going to have to replace the roof in 5 years or 10 years. You'll never have to replace it. So you're going to save yourself money there. The cost to cool this place every year, because it's insulated properly, is much lower. So that's paying you $300 or $400 a month. Because they're talking about energy costs double or tripling in the next 10 to 15 years, right? We're already seeing it happen. So imagine we replaced a 900 square foot bungalow with a 6,000 square foot custom home for ourselves, one of our first homes. I sprayed under the slab, I sprayed the foundation, the attic, the walls, you name it. That place cost us $50 a month to heat, cool, gas, everything. $50 a month. The old bungalow cost us almost $500 a month to heat, cool, operate. So double or triple that. 10, 15 years from now, I'm paying $150 a month to heat and cool and operate my home, and the old bungalow is spending $1,500 a month. So not only do the savings accrue, but the savings are exponential as we go forward and costs of things increase. Any asset you can put money into now, and the shiny stuff is all a liability. I know some people don't want to hear that. If you haven't built your house properly. If you built your house properly, the shiny stuff is fine. It all gets paid for. Does that make sense? It's kind of depressing though, right? A little bit. Before I go too far, I want to take some questions if you guys have any. Because maybe none of this you wanted to know about. Maybe you have some other things you want to know about.
I'll come out and bring out the mic. Who has a question?
There's always got to be someone to break the seal.
Well, I want to know.
You want to just pick one?
How about the people that don't need to do anything?
Oh, the perfect people.
But they're at a home
Mortgages-
show shopping.
They are. Oh, there's plans. I like that.
What's the plans?
Actually moving to Costa Rica.
You're moving to Costa Rica?
Maybe. We just saw it.
Oh, you just saw it. You're considering moving to Costa Rica. It's not a bad plan. So you want to sell the house? What kind of roof you got on there?
A brand new asphalt.
Oh,
I know.
I know. That's okay. It's okay. We'll give you a gimme on that one.
Any questions?
Oh, we
Right
got
there?
one up
All
here.
right,
See,
now they're going.
Now you broke the seal. Thank you, sir.
Okay, how you doing? I just want to know, because we bought a property, just a piece of land up in Central Florida.
Yep.
What we're planning to do is a house for vacationing and, to rent it out, stuff like that. What would you think it would be better to do? Something like a permanent house or like the container homes? Because we're looking at the container homes right now. It sounds like,
It's a tough call, really. Everything I say is all things being equal, perfect world, everyone makes the same decisions. Container homes have come a long way. Like you can even do SIPS panels, pre-manufactured homes, something you're going to come in, drop it on the foundation. Just make sure that it's efficient and it's foamed, it's efficient to operate, it's not going to cost a lot of money. The great thing with container homes is the structure is already there. So you can put in a foundation, put in your well, your septic system, and drop it on piers or on concrete footings, and you're off to the races. So that's going to come down to cost per square foot. Yeah.
Hi, huge fan from Montreal, but we're moving to Toronto.
Bonjour.
Thank you. I have a question. For the home in Wellington, I remember seeing a lot of episodes, but never seeing the end result. Was there?
We just gave up.
Okay. I was just
No, there was.
wondering
I
if
think there was some final, and they changed schedules down here, but it's finished. You will get to see it finished in the beginning of the next show. Yeah. Do you think I'd still be allowed to live there if it wasn't finished?
So we're relatively new to Florida.
Yep.
We bought a beautiful home, but it's a 1950s home. We need to do a lot of interior work. Best advice for finding the right architect, contractor, when we don't know anybody here.
It's $1 million question.
Yeah.
Best advice for finding so you're looking for an architect, you're looking for a renovator, you're looking
Designer.
for a designer, you're looking for ideas, materials,
Everything.
You're at a pretty good spot to start with.
Yeah. And we've met some people, but
Yeah. Home shows are a great way, and to be honest, I do probably 20 or 25, home shows in different cities from Vancouver all across Canada and northern U.S. And this is my first Floridian appearance. Thank you. But they're a great resource. People ask me why do you go to these home shows? And I love to walk around, see what's new, see what's interesting. Typically, companies that are going to invest in advertising and marketing that are here are a better caliber. And the ones that are good are probably too busy to be at the home show. And the ones that can't afford to be here, you don't want to hire them anyway. So this is a great resource. It's a great starting point.
yeah.
And we have an approved contractor network in Canada. We haven't expanded to the U.S. yet. But one of the things we do when we're interviewing members for or looking through their applications, right? What's the most important part, do you think, of hiring a contractor? Their references. Yeah, everybody has a job. Everybody's given a list of references. Nobody's going to give you a bad list of references, right? So the references are important. You have to get them. But I don't want to hear from your cousin and your mom and your sister and your friend. I want to hear from, if you're a tile installer, who's your supplier? Because if you're a good tile installer, you're buying a lot of tile. They know your name there, right? If you're a plumber, give me 5 names of general contractors you work with, which can backfire sometimes because people call me for references on sub-trades. And I'm like, no, they're terrible because I need them. I don't want them to be too busy for me. So that can backfire. But talk to trade references, like other companies that they work with in the business. And if they're good and they're quality and they do work and they're consistent, everybody knows everybody. And, they won't give you those references if they don't have them.
Okay, thank you.
But the most important part is the same as choosing your spouse. At the end of the day, you want to choose someone that you communicate with well, that you get along with, that you trust, because you're handing them the keys and the money.
Any other questions over here? All right, we're going back here.
Hey, Bryan, what's your thought on adding solar down in South Florida?
Solar in South Florida? See, I like solar. We did a huge solar array over at the hotel to offset the costs there. But it's a 1950s. You know, we were limited in what we could do there. But I kind of look. I talk about going green a lot, and people kind of roll their eyes, especially if I'm in Alberta or Texas, or they kind of like, oh, green. Like unplug the well, shut up about the green. But here's the thing about green, and solar is one of those things that fits into green technology, windmills, any of that kind of stuff. When you think green, think money. Right? Put in your pocket. Because when you open a box, you can order a truckload of solar panels. You open them and you think, everything is clean and green and mean. But somewhere on the other side of the world, there's a river on fire from the heavy metals and the chemicals and all that kind of stuff. So this is where I kind of look at, green as saving money. So if you can make decisions and spend your money that you won't require that, or that would be an upgrade bonus, so you can almost go off the grid. That's the pump and the hole, right? So if you're adding solar panels because you're spending so much money on electricity to operate your home that you want to offset that, you're buying the pump. If you fix the hole and then you add solar panels so you don't have a cost for electricity, now you're fixing the hole, right? So I always talk about green, like look at it as money. Save money first on the cost, on the operating costs and the maintenance costs, then start making money with the additional things like solar and wind and everything. It's all money. If you're spending less money, if you're using less energy, if you're buying less materials, you're having less of an impact on the environment. You're green, you're saving turtles, but more importantly, you're putting green in your pocket. So it all goes hand in hand.
All right.
But it's a good spot for sun.
I saw one over
for
there.
sure.
Hi, Bryan.
Hello.
Do you have any plans for any more hotels?
We do. We bought into a property in the Florida Keys in Isla Morada that you'll see on the next show. We love it. We love it down there. We spent a week a month there for the past 20 years. A week a month? No, a month a year. I wish a week every month. So we're doing some work down there, and we are looking at acquiring 2 more hotel properties in the Bahamas and doing a significant expansion. And we'll probably film it. Yeah. So yes, I'm not retiring yet. The chest pains haven't kicked in yet.
Going to the back over here.
So you talked about not being able to pay your mortgage and struggling for your first couple years of the show. When was the turning point to where you could buy these properties like hotels and villas and things like that?
So that turning point, I signed a 3-season deal, my very first season. And I was going to do it for free, right? I had said, this is my marketing budget, 3 months of work, we're going to do it. But then I'm working 100 hours a week, couldn't get to it. I was getting paid. What do you think I got paid for what do you think you get paid to be on TV when you start?
Not a lot. I'm a journalism major.
Yeah. So it was $3,000 Canadian, which is like $4 American after taxes, $3,000 per episode. So I gave up probably close to $1 million gross construction season to make $39,000. It was a 13-episode season. So yeah, I had trouble turning the lights on. But in the first season, I started to get to know the production business. The second season, they came to me before the second season and said, hey, let's redo your contract. We'll pay you a little more because the show's doing well. Let's make it a 5-year contract. I said, no. We made a deal. And I kind of had the plan at this point. I'm going to wait out my deal till we have advertising contracts in place, till we have marketing partners, till we've got there. And it was at the end of season 3. I did get a bump in season 2 to $3,200 an episode. Season 3, I think we were up to $35, so I was really rolling in it. And if you're in the trades, you understand if you finish filming on a Friday, I can't just decide, hey, we're going to start building a house on Monday. I might be 3-6 months away from getting back to business. So it was hard. But after that 3rd season, every season they're like, let's renegotiate. And that's why at the end of the 3rd season, when they're like, no, we have to renew, I said, well, here are the terms. Because at that point I realized the marketing budgets, the spend that, I mean, they were making a lot more money than I was. So now I own the production company, the international distribution rights, the merchandising, the ancillary. So we just kind of wrote the book at that point. So it was 3 years of, and here's the thing I try and teach my kids. When the apocalypse happens, when The Last of Us is real, the only people that are going to survive are fishermen and farmers. And the way I say that is the mentality. Because my dad raised me to be a fisherman and a farmer. He said, if you want to eat fish for dinner, you can't just go out and, down here it's easy to catch fish relatively. Imagine you're up north in Michigan, you're searching for a fish. You have to cast every inch of the shoreline all day. You got to fish 12 hours a day to come home with a boat full of fish. So the guys that go out and throw 1 or 2 lures and they say, oh, there's no fish here, and they go home, they go hungry. The farmers, and I notice it with my kids, you have a bag of seeds and you hand it to your kid, they just gobble them, they eat them. They think it's popcorn. Then they get up the next morning and they go, shit, where's the seeds? And you're like, that was it, pal. The farmers will take that and they'll work 12 hours a day and they'll go hungry for 9 months taking care of those seeds until they have a field full of, a harvest and more seeds. So, and that's when everyone says, oh, it must be nice. You got a field full of seeds, but you have to starve that, the beginning.
We'll take one more question. Who has a question? Anyone?
I was like, we tapped them out.
Do you have a question?
Sorry, sir, you already had a question.
Hi. Is the hotel open in the Bahamas?
It sure is.
And how do you get there?
Well, I'll tell you, this is one of the most convenient places in the world to get there. There's 2 flights a day out of Fort Lauderdale Exec with Makers Air direct to Congo Town. Yeah, it's Cyril Lamar. So you're all invited. You're all invited. Just tell them when you get there, I said you'd get friends and family rate.
And then also, one
we don't
last.
have a friends and family rate, but please, everybody.
One last. What is your most memorable, for better or worse, project that you've been on to date?
I'll tell you what, everything I've ever done that's been filmed and televised, we had an opportunity. It was in Northern Ontario, north of Toronto, and it was a single dad with 5 kids. And 2 of the kids had fetal alcohol syndrome, ADHD, one was on the spectrum. And the single dad, the mom had some issues and wasn't in the picture. And when we arrived at the home, there was no insulation, and the kids were playing on a floor that was rotten and falling down. And I'm showing up thinking, great, we're going to make a great show. And I got to meet David and his kids, and we worked through the whole thing. And the little girl said, can I take you to school for show and tell? And I said, sure, why not? So I went to school with her for show and tell, and she brings me in. I didn't realize she was in French immersion. She's like, bonjour, class. And I was like, oh, hey, everybody. So that was fun. But we got through this whole show. The community came together. We rebuilt this entire house. We put, and here's the thing on the show, too. At the end of the episodes, if the host of the show is like, hey, I threw in a big screen and a playground and a this and that, I threw in a bunch of extras, those people were really great. If they walk in, they're like, oh, unfortunately, we couldn't furnish everything. We just didn't have the budget. They were not so great. So we put in, we furnished the whole place, and the community was down, and it was just a beautiful home when we were done. All the kids had their own bedrooms. We put in a huge big screen TV and a PlayStation. And we walked in on the last day, and David, at this point, we'd become pretty good friends. And the kids ran in, they're like, PlayStation, and they right to the couch. And Dave came out to me after in the truck. He said, listen, I just want to apologize. The kids, they didn't understand how much work has gone. And I said, Dave, I'll stop you right there, man. I told him, I said, I didn't come here to do this for you. I showed up to help you do this yourself. So don't feel like we've given you something. And I said, those kids, the last thing on their mind should be insulation and wiring and plumbing and drywall. That's exactly what we wanted them to do. And we were both kind of in tears there. And I was like, shit, I get paid for this. That was the most amazing project that I ever worked on. Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for being here. We're going to be stepping over right around the corner in front of the Step and Repeat. You'll be able to obviously meet Bryan, take a picture. But thank you so much.
Drop stuff. Thanks for having me, guys. It was great.
All right. Thanks, everyone.